For those of you who were able to have a program in your hands this morning, there was a picture on the front that I thought would be nice for today. Obviously, there's the autumn leaves, and had a chance to see it. Okay. So where I found this was I was searching for something that trees do sometimes. Certain kinds of trees do. And it's something that I just learned about fairly recently, although it's been known for a long time. But it's called crown shyness. Has anyone ever heard this? Crown shyness. So you can't see it as well in this picture because I went for the autumn leaves instead of a better picture of it. But if you'll notice, there are little gaps around the trees. And if you were to look down at this forest from above, every tree would be individual, the top of it, the crown of it. It would be like puzzle pieces not quite touching. So there are little gaps, actually, that you would see more clearly if you were above it. It would just look like all these little pieces that if you could push them together would create one, but all the trees are actually enjoying their own little individual space at the top. And it's a phenomenon known as crown shyness. And they've noticed this since the 1920s, so for about 100 years. And not all tree species do it, kinds of trees, but some kinds of trees do. Sometimes it's a mix of different kinds of trees, and they'll do what is called crown shyness. And they're not quite sure why the trees do this. So you would assume, right, like looking up, like they just be kind of like branched into each other, which you can see sometimes. They don't know if trees kind of adopted this behavior because maybe it's possible that it was a way to keep, like if a tree was sick, or if like, there's a certain kind of insect that, maybe it was keeping that little bit of space would maybe keep it from extending to the nearby trees. And then another theory was that maybe the rubbing of the ends of the branches, the tips of the branches might create some damage to the ends of the trees, and the trees just didn't like it. So they just sort of pulled back a little bit. So there's theories, but nobody knows for sure why this happened. I thought this was so interesting. And I wish I had a better picture for you, actually, so you could see how cool it looks when this whole forest is doing this thing called crown shyness. But I don't know, for some reason that struck me as so interesting that each tree, there's a kind of awareness there in its behavior that it would kind of have its own little space. And that's how it wanted to stay. And even though, right, all the roots, I'm sure, in the earth are all connected at the top, there's just this little bit of space. And I thought that is so interesting. And I always love to, I guess I feel kind of inspired sometimes about what the trees are doing. In our theology and the tradition of the Swedenborgian Church, there's always kind of an idea that nature is offering to us little clues sometimes about divinity, or that there's a divine design in nature, and that we can learn that nature is its own book of Revelation. So it always struck me as interesting, and growing up in this church, I remember hearing, in Sunday school and stuff, just like, okay, we are like trees in a way, or that there was, if you think of Psalm 1, there's a line there that says, he is like a tree planted by streams of water. So that might come to mind. He's like a tree. So there's always sort of a little encouragement to like a tree. Okay, how am I like a tree? Or we might say, oh, trees, you can get a baby tree, a sapling in a nursery, right? So there's like little things that are the same as our human patterns, or sometimes we think about our families in terms of trees, like if you have your family tree, right? And there's images of trees we even use with pictures hanging off the branches sometimes when we think about our family tree. So there's kind of a suggestion planted over thousands of years to think about how we might have a relationship with trees, or something that, or the idea that we could learn from them. So I thought about this, and I thought that's so interesting that they're just taking their little space. For whatever reason, they are taking the space that they need. And I thought maybe that's, to me, what felt so lovely about it, is that it's a gift to ourselves if we can take the space that we need for our own life and our own spiritual life. So we all know life is busy, or it can be. The amount of information that we are exposed to every day, or at least can be exposed to every day, is incredible. We are exposed to all kinds of information from all around the world. Advice, sometimes it's the next best thing to do. It's what's going on over here in this part of the world, and I don't know if we know how to process all of that, or where to put it all. And especially when it's very emotional, and there's, it's a lot. So each of us, especially, I would say, as you become an adult and you have the ability to determine what your life looks like, each of us can decide to take the time that we need and the space that we need to make sure that we are finding our center, that we feel rooted, that we feel grounded in this life, and that we can open to, if it's not already open, or it could be, it's certainly just a way to support that, is that open to connecting with, having that relationship with God. And nobody can do it for you, is the thing. Nobody can say, even though we might need it as adults, you might need a rest. You might need to put that device down for a little bit, or you might need to find a little quiet time, right? Children always have to have naps sometimes, right? You might put your child down for a nap. I can be looking at Mom because, of course, I remember being little, like, I don't want a nap. And my mom would say, but it's so nice, isn't it? You just get to lay in this bed and it's going to be, I'd be like, I don't want this nap. You should have this nap.
Go to sleep, I would.
That's right, I know. So it's interesting then if we bring in for a moment the story in Samuel, because there's rest. It's time for rest. And the one hearing for the first time really God's voice is the child, is Samuel. And this is new for him, because as we know from the story, he doesn't know whose voice it is. And he's getting up and he's going over to Eli and he's thinking, is this you? Assuming it's Eli. Eli is saying, this is not me. And by the third time, that's when Eli's like, it's ringing a bell here. Okay, this is the Lord speaking to you. Next time you hear it, I want you to say, speak, your servant is listening. So what I love about this is, the more I'm thinking about it, is, okay, first of all, it was a time of rest. I think we thrive better when we have the amount of rest that we need, the kind of rest that we need. Not only is it a time of rest and sleep, but they each have their own place to sleep. So Eli has his place, and Samuel has his place. And in the scripture, it's just little, it's just a few words to describe that, but it's like, no, you go back to your place, and you listen to what I says. So what I love about this too is that Eli is giving him permission to have his own experience with God. And he's not trying to say you should do it, well, he does give advice, so he can say, like, you should listen and then say this, but he's not trying to be a part of it, interestingly. He's welcoming. I mean, Eli is a priest, it says his eyesight is becoming dim. him or he's growing older, you know, in a way it's like passing on, in a sense, that knowing God to the next priest, Samuel will grow up to be this next priest. He's training for that, that's why he's there. But it's kind of beautiful that he's like, here, you have your own experience with God, and you know God, have this time, listen. And so I think, hey, how am I love that for my life. I love it when I don't always do a good job of it, but when I can be consistent or try to make space for a time when I can just listen. And that's sort of the beautiful message, you know, that you each have your own relationship with God. You are each hearing God's voice in your own way. We allow for that to be clear when we make more space, I think, and when we are very clear that I want to hear it. So there's sort of this beautiful message, I think, is just a reminder that to carve out that time, to make time for rest. I think that's why retreats are so nice, because sometimes we have to get out of our own, it helps sometimes just to kind of get out of our own space where we, you know, it can be so easy not to rest, really. Sometimes I think that's what the blessing and gifts of a retreat is, or like a different kind of sanctuary space, is because it allows you that, like, I don't have my house to clean right now, so I guess I won't do that, and and now I can't get service over here, so I guess I won't do that either. There's to take those blessings and be like, okay, what's it like to really listen? How's that really going to feel to me? Is it new, or do we know what God sounds like to us? And interestingly, in the history of time where Samuel is placed, you might remember that Samuel is kind of at the end of the period of Judges, and it's going to be heading into the period of Kings. So Samuel is the priest who the people come to and they say, we want a king. We want somebody who can rule over us. We want a king. And the lesson from that, offered in the church's teachings is that, when Samuel was upset by this, he comes to the Lord and says they're asking for a king. He's kind of taking it personally. And the Lord is saying, no, this is them acting out against me because they don't want me for their king. They're actually turning to a human person. They want a human person in that to be the king. Instead of saying, okay, God is king, I'm just going to go within, or I'm going to see God in that way, my creator in that way. It's like, no, I would like a human person to kind of look to for my authority figure. And so this is Samuel. When God comes into his life, it's like this beautiful little reminder that God comes to us wherever we are. We're meant to have that personal relationship. We're meant to hear God, each in our own way. And that he would want that for the people. And he wishes that they would see God as king instead of wanting a human king. So it's like, okay, where's my authority line in this life? Where do I give that ultimate, knowing to even? Where do I give the authority in my life? And do I make space to really allow for a beautiful relationship to unfold that is our inner life meeting, reaching, connecting God who is a part of us, but coming to it in a new awareness or deeper awareness. That's such a gift. That makes this life fun. It makes this life special. That makes this life, I think, it makes this life easier to encounter it with more ease and grace, because we know I'm never alone. I'm never alone, despite what it looks like sometimes. I'm never alone. God is within me, and God is here. The angels are surrounding us. And We have a whole support network always with us, there to respond to us and help us grow. So finally, I'll just say one word. I think it's kind of interesting because crown shyness. Crown, if anybody is familiar with, if you are familiar with chakras, crown is this, the crown is at the top of your head. It's kind of seen as an energy center that is about connecting with the all that is, the all. So it's like, it's interesting to think about making space, shying away a little bit maybe from the world, we could use that word in that way, and like making space to connect with and allow in the flow of God's divine love. So may that be for each of us. May we feel that presence, find that voice, know that it's there for us, and find ways to honor it